Cool.
Yeah, sure thing.
Okay, cool. So let's get started. So I wanted to talk about a new tool that I started using recently in a project. I think it's pretty convenient, and this is AWS Cognito. AWS Cognito is a managed service that provides simple and secure sign-in, sign-up, and access control with all the flows involved, like confirming an email, resetting password, all that is included in the service. It allows easy and quick integration with web and mobile apps. It's scalable, so you can have literally millions of users and requests, and you don't have to worry about scaling a server. It integrates with third-party identity providers such as Facebook, Google, and Amazon to have single sign-on, and also enterprise identity providers like SAML and other implementations. And it's standards compliant. So if in your application, let's say you have to implement a security access like ISO or HIPAA or other security standards, you can certificate those by using Cognito because it's compliant to all those standards. In which case scenarios we can use Cognito? When we have user management, registration, email validation, login, password recovery, a sleek user interface, and an authentication backend is all included. You can also use it when you have to integrate third-party services like Google and any other identity provider. And when you need to add also not only the authentication in the front end, but also authorization for server side. So before we jump to a practical example, let me quickly outline how the Cognito workflow, a simple authentication flow works with Cognito. You have the client here on the left, Cognito, and let's say you have APIs or services you want to protect against unauthorized access. So Cognito implements an API that you need to follow. And this is with calls or invocation of remote methods that are proprietary of Cognito. So when a client sends an initiate auth message, Cognito will respond with a challenge. Let's say I want to authenticate using my username and password. And then the challenge will be, okay, provide me your user and password. Then the client responds, that sends a second message responding to the auth challenge. Let's say this is my password. And then Cognito will verify that is correct. And if it is correct, it will return a Cognito token. These are pretty much the same as standard JSON Web Tokens. And then you can use these tokens to interact with APIs and services. And then these APIs and services can respond with your resources. Sorry. Usually the tokens are composed by three parts. You get an ID token, which is literally your access token, the token that you are going to use to access the third part, the APIs and services. And you get also a an access token, which is used when you want to modify something of the user itself. Let's say you send a message to Cognito to change the password of a user. In that case, you are not using the ID token, you are using the access token. And you also get a refresh token that is used when the ID token is going to expire. You use the refresh token to kind of get a new set of tokens. Something's going on with my mouse. Okay, so let's jump right now. So far, are we good? Questions?
All good here.
Okay, cool. So let's see a little bit on a high level how third-party integration works with Cognito. You have the identity provider, the third party, this is Facebook, Google, or whatever identity provider you want to use. It can be your own proprietary identity provider, such as Okta or SAML or something like that. So you are going to get the token from the third party. You authenticate with the third party. This is my Google account. They are going to respond with an ID. You send that ID to Cognito. Cognito validates that ID with the third party and returns the Cognito token. And from that point, is pretty much the same. There is an interaction with STS, but it's invisible to the developer. STS is another Amazon Web Service that is like a token vending machine. It will give you the tokens necessary to access to these services, given that you are not authenticating directly with Cognito. But this part is totally transparent to the developer. You don't even know STS is part of this flow. So I guess if we are good, if you don't have questions, we can jump into a more practical example. So,
all right.
First of all, I'm going to show you how Cognito looks in the Amazon console. Basically, when you go to Cognito, you are faced with two parts. One is identity pools. It's not what we are seeing today. This is related to a more advanced scenario in which you have things like multi-tenancy or something like that. And user pools, which is basically what we are looking right now, is my custom user directory, right? Basically, the idea is you create a user pool for every application or service that you have. When you want users to sign in, you create a user pool. I am going to quickly go and create a test user pool so you see how is the process of setting up a user pool. I'm not going to step through all the settings, but we are going to review quickly. So as you can see, it has a test. It's just a name that you give the user pool in order to identify it in the console, right? And then you can work with the attributes of the users. How is the user going to sign in? Is going to use a username or an email address or a phone number, both maybe. If the fields, the username or email address is case sensitive or not, which other standard attributes of the user are required when the user signs up, and you can put their address, birthday, email, and whatnot. I mean, there are a lot of fields. And you can also add custom attributes. And you name those as you prefer, and you put a value is just a string or a number, right? If the value is complex, you use a string, and then you can parse it in the application code or just a number. There is something else that you have to configure, that is alias attributes. Alias attributes is when you want the user, let's say, to sign in with a username or an email. Both are valid. Those same things done when you see signing with your username or your email. Both are valid, and you can put whatever in the same field. You can do that with alias attributes, and you can define your alias attributes. Let's see, what else? You can define the password policy, and that is defined by user pool. That is the length, if it requires numbers or not. Also, if you want the users to sign up by themselves, or you want to sign them up manually in cases in which the service is like private or managed by an admin, you can do that as well. And the number of days that the temporary password that you send to a user the first time is valid. By default is 1 week. You can define the delivery method of the emails and the SMS messages if you are using authentication through or verification through phone messages. There is a little bit of configuration that happens here, but is minimal, and it works by default with a default Cognito email address that is generic, right? So it's not necessary that you configure that. You fill in this section when you actually want to send the emails with your own application email. You have multi-factor authentication. You can configure which fields will you the user will have to validate, and how the user is going to recover the user account if the password is forgotten. And then you have application clients that are kind of how you integrate the user pool, what you're creating here, with an application. And you are going to create as many application clients as applications are going to interact with the user pool. So let's say you have a mobile application and a web application, then those are two different application clients. And the application clients pretty much is, it has a name, it has like an access ID and a secret key to access the information, and you enable different flows of authentication. For example, if you are creating a command line tool to sign users in for an admin, you are going to enable API creation of the users as an admin, and that gives you a lot of power, but you don't want to put that power, by instance, in a mobile client, right? You can enable different flows of authentication. And also, in the case of an application that is going not only to read the user attributes, but also to change them, you can define the writable attributes that you want to include in the scopes, right? So if you don't want the application to change, let's say, the address, you disable this, and you are sure that you are not going to mess the user attributes while you are developing this application. Questions so far? Okay.
No, not really. Seems very powerful. Depends.
Yeah, indeed. And I mean, it's super configurable. In my experience, if you go with the defaults, you get started in 1 minute. I'm going through all the details, but if you click next, the user pool is created, and you are left off with a pretty powerful configuration. The only caveat that I want to point out is that the attributes cannot be changed once the user pool has been created. So you need to think carefully, really, really carefully about which fields do you need. And if by chance you need to change those attributes, you can totally do that, but you will have to create another user pool with the necessary attributes and migrate users from one pool to the other, which is a process you can do and is super simple to do. But when creating a user pool, the takeaway is think carefully about everything you need, because you need to define it upfront at the time of creation of the user pool. And you have also triggers. This is an interesting feature. I haven't explored it yet, but as you can see, you have a pre-sign up, a pre-authentication trigger, a custom message, and these are Lambda functions that you execute, that are automatically executed when these events happen. So before the sign up, this Lambda is going to be executed, and you can do things like send custom messages, and even depending on what you return from the Lambda, maybe make something not happen. Like if the email is from this domain name, don't allow authentication, for example. You return a false here and you stop the whole flow, right? So if you need to implement custom authentication, let's say responding a set of questions, you can do that using Lambdas. One thing worth mentioning is that for every application client you create, this is the application, the user pool that we are going to use in the example that I'm going to show you in a couple of minutes. For each application client, as you can see, I have created 2 application clients here. One is for a web, the other is for a command line tool. Each application client has an integration that allows you to define a callback URL and a sign out URL. And this works the same as the OAuth flows, right? So this callback URL is going to be called after a successful sign-in, right? You are going to go to a custom UI created by Cognito. The user is going to sign in there, and then it's going to be redirected to the callback URL that you specify. You can define flows based per application client. So for example, for this web, I'm using an implicit grant flow, which instead of returning an authorization code, is going to return the token itself, right? Which is not exactly the same as auth. Auth usually returns an authorization code that is used in turn to get the token. This flow, this application client, if you configure it this way, allows you to return the token directly after signing, which is what we want, because we are not integrating with a third party, right? This is our own user pool. Questions?
Yeah. How do you manage the different environments? Do you have to create like one user pool per environment?
Yeah, I would advise so. Think of one user pool per application. If it is a development environment against a staging environment, I would recommend going with a user pool for each one, and that will give you flexibility. Otherwise, you start like mixing users of different environment, which is not good. You could define, let's say, a custom attribute, which is environment, right? And you know which environment is for every user. But yeah, think of one user pool per application, right? Per application / environment.
Okay.
By the way, the first 50,000 users, monthly active users in Cognito are free of charge. So this is virtually free if you are using it for development. And if an application gets 50,000 users, I mean, you are in a good position to pay for it, right? So it's fast, it's cheap. So let me show you right now that we are talking, I'm going to show you the hosted UI that you get for free when you create a user pool. This is the UI. As you can see, you can here sign up, sign in, forgot password, and all that is implemented out of the box. Right off the bat, you get all this. In this case, I used a custom domain, as you can see here, is auth.architecture.whiteprom.net. And of course, if you don't have a custom domain, you can use a Cognito domain name here, which is going to be something like auth.your region. In this case, we are in US East 1, amazoncognito.com, and you can select the domain name. Or you can use your own domain name in which you are going to require SSL certificate that you can also for free generate in Route 53. And you get this by default, and you can kind of customize a little bit the look and feel. It's not really flexible, I say. You can customize things like the typeface and the colors, but not other things like if you want this logo to be, let's say, down here and the button not to be a button, just a link. You don't have that amount of freedom. You can do it with this, what's the name? I gave a lightning talk about it. You can really customize it.
Amplify?
Exactly, with Amplify. Amplify integrates with Cognito. When you add an authorization service to an Amplify project, actually it's a Cognito user pool. And Amplify has this set of components that allow you to create your own authorization component, right? You have to fulfill a contract, like this component needs to return this, and that, and then you can do it how you want it, right? But I mean, for a default that you get after 5 minutes of following a form is pretty powerful. So let's jump to the code. Enough TikTok. Okay, so I have this React application, super simple. I'm going to launch it. And I have this backend here. This backend, sorry. Here, this has been made with the serverless framework. Is a Lambda function that returns just static data, right? It's nothing fancy. I'm going to do a test request here to the endpoint. Is something like dev/people. And I'm returning, as you can see here, I'm returning data, which is hard-coded, and the event just for development purposes, right? I want to see the event triggered by the Lambda, right? So you can see here things of the context of the event. And our front-end application here. what do we have here in the application? We have this endpoint that I'm passing by environment here. See, basically is the same endpoint that I show you. And we are expecting an authorization token to do that request, right? As you can see, I'm not sending any authorization token when I do the raw request here. Basically, here I'm doing the same as I will do with curl with a fancier tool, right? I'm not sending any authorization request. And this is because the endpoint is not protected, it's public right now. But I'm going to add the authorization using the conventions of the serverless framework. So basically, as you can see, it's just a matter of adding an attribute to the event of the Lambda. And this is an authorizer. And the authorizer requires the Amazon reserves number or Amazon reserves name of the Cognito user pool and the email, just that. So I'm going to deploy once more the application. It should take just a minute. Where did I get that? This value. If you go to the here to your user pool, you get this in the general settings page. Basically, is a copy pasta of this.
All right. And a quick question here, like you can still go on. How easy it is to implement this? Like, how easy do you think it is to implement this without a serverless backend? Like,
basically,
yeah.
Basically, you should define, and there are modules to do this, right? You have to define the logic to interact with the Cognito endpoints, right?
Oh, right.
When I show you this sign in URL, this is basically an endpoint, right?
Yeah.
And you have this login endpoint is meant to be used from a browser, but you have also authorization endpoints to kind of get. So you should define a library that does all the talking to Cognito, right? But it's only that.
All right. Okay. So it's pretty easy in paper, at least.
Yeah, it's actually this easy. Incognito in serverless is easier to use the authorizer flow, because usually lambdas are outside a VPC and they don't have by default internet access, right? So it's easier to integrate using the authorizer approach rather than adding a lambda to a VPC just to talk to Cognito.
All right.
One thing though, this is not done in the Lambda. This is done this configuration happens in the API gateway. So even if you're not using Lambda, you can, if you are using an API gateway to expose your backend, you can also use an authorizer.
All right. That's even easier then. Okay. Good.
Yeah. You could have an instance like running, I don't know, Express. But if you use API gateway to expose those endpoints, then you are able to do pretty much the same. So
hey, sorry, I have to leave because I have a sprint planning now. But
okay.
please make sure to share the code when you're done.
Yeah, sure. You will get the video, the slides, and the code.
Okay, that's awesome. Thank you.
Thank you,
Bye.
Ryan. Bye. Okay, so I got the application deployed again, and right now, since I'm not going to send any token, but if I try to hit the endpoint again, I will get an unauthorized for one message, right? So basically is what is going to happen if I try to get people from this endpoint from the front end, right? So as you can see, I made the application to request the login if there is no authorization token. And this is my Cognito endpoint, right? This is the what I get when I configure the application client. And you can see the client ID here, right? I also configured that using the environment in the React application here. So I'm going to, I could sign in. I'm just going to sign up. Sorry, sign in. And as you can see here, I'm sent back, when that authentication succeeds, I'm sent back to the callback URL here. And I get the ID token because I'm using an implicit grant flow directly in the query stream, right? So I made the application get that token, or you could put it manually here, right? And then when I do the request, I get the data, and I also get, since I'm in the implicit grant, let me show you that in the flow. No, sorry, not here, here. See, for the application client for web, I'm allowing these scopes for the implicit grant. And if I show you the logic of the handler here, I'm sending, as I showed before, I'm sending the event back, right? Let's look how that response look in the front end. And here you can see I get the data, the event, and the event has an identity because I'm sending a token that identifies me, the user, and related to a user in the user pool. So the Lambda gets the identity. And since I allowed the scopes here in the Cognito pool claims, you will see my mail, which is so far what I gave to the user pool, right? I didn't add any other like detail to my account, right? I'm going to change the token here. And of course, you are going to see that the request failed because the token is not correct, right? So basically, that is pretty much it. I just wanted to go light and simple, showing you how fast and easy is to integrate Cognito. Do you have any comments or questions?
No, it seems very simple. I'm sure there must be something like bad about this at some point, but
Well,
I don't know.
I want to point out a pain point that I've seen so far. This is great for single tenant applications. For multi-tenant application is convoluted.
Yeah,
you need to you need to create, as we created a user pool, you also have identity pools. So you need to create an identity pool per tenant. Is one of the recommended ways to implement multi-tenancy in Cognito, but it's more convoluted. But if your application is single tenancy, Cognito is a super easy and cheap way to handle your users. Oh, one more thing I wanted to show. I'm going to go to API Gateway here so I can show you the configuration. In code, using the serverless framework, I just added this. Like, this is the authorizer, this is the REN, and those are the claims available to the Lambda. This is what happens. That was my code. This is what happens in the API gateway because of this code, right? So if you go to authorizers, you are going to see this, which is created by the hello?
Yeah.
Okay.
You froze for a little bit there, but it's all good.
I froze myself too. I don't know what happened. Okay. This is the authorizer that gets created when I add this configuration to the HTTP event in the serverless framework. So basically, you enable the Cognito user pool. Lightning is the name of the user pool that we were creating, and you can add a validation here. It's some sort of regular expression that validates the token, and the name of the header that is going to contain the token, right? And then in your endpoints, I have just this get endpoint here. Of course, the option endpoint, because it's a cross-origin resource sharing endpoint. But here you can see that it has this authorization field, which is the authorizer that I created here. So if I had another authorizer, it will appear here in this dropdown. So basically, if you have not a serverless API, a backend API, but you are using API gateway, you can create a new authorizer. It's super simple. It doesn't require much configuration. And then in the endpoint, you add that to the configuration of the request, and that's it. You plug the user pool with the authorizer, with the endpoint, and then you get a validated authorizer and protected endpoint. So that's it, guys.
Oh, thank you so much, Fabricio. It's pretty cool.
Thanks a lot.
I'm going to check that out on my own. You're going to publish everything like you say to Renan, right?
Yeah, indeed. I'm going to publish the GitHub repo, so you get the code and the videos and slides.
All right. Thank you so much, man. Have a good one.
Have a good one, you too. Bye.